Good evening and welcome to this special Faith Nation highlighting some of the biggest stories of 2024. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener. Well, since his first term as president came to an end, Donald Trump has been plagued with legal proceedings, including criminal charges. But he didn't take them lying down. Instead, he made his case to the Supreme Court. In July, the justices issuing a landmark opinion that says presidents have limited immunity for their actions. The decision protects presidents from either party, and it had a major impact for an election interference case against former President Donald Trump. In this story, CBN's Gary Lane takes us back to this summer when the decision first came down for reaction.
For the first time in its 235-year history, the U.S. Supreme Court has clarified the issue of presidential immunity, ruling 6-3 that presidents have absolute immunity for official acts and presumptive immunity for actions taken outside the parameter of the duties of the office. Former President Donald Trump brought the case before the court, claiming he had absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for his official acts as president on January 6, 2021.
But you're not going to do anything if you don't have immunity, because otherwise you're going to be prosecuted after you leave office.
And a majority of the justices agreed. Chief Justice John Roberts delivered the court's opinion that, quote, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. And he's entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts.
The court, in a rather complicated way, carved out various levels of immunity that a president might enjoy.
Immediately after the ruling was announced, Trump posted on Truth Social, "Big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American." In an address to the nation, President Biden said the ruling means there are no limits on what a president can do.
This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
The ruling kicks the January 6th case down to the federal district court, and it puts the burden on special prosecutor Jack Smith to prove the former president acted unofficially and with criminal motivation as a candidate for president. That will be hard to prove because the Supreme Court says his contacts with the Justice Department and Vice President Pence to overturn the election took place as official acts within the president's authority. When Trump's lawyers presented arguments before the court last April, Justice Sotomayor asked if there should be any limits on presidential actions.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
Justice Kagan and Jackson agreed with Sotomayor, voting against the majority's decision. In the dissent, Sotomayor wrote, "Today's decision to grant former presidents criminal immunity reshapes the institution of the presidency. It makes a mockery of the principal foundation to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law. The court gives former President Trump all the immunity he asked for and more." Legal experts agree this unprecedented historic ruling will have far-reaching implications, not only for Donald Trump, but future presidents as well. As a result, the Supreme Court's decision will likely delay Jack Smith's prosecution of the former president until after the November election. And President Trump is now citing the ruling in a move seeking to overturn his conviction in New York last month of falsifying business records, despite those acts being committed before he was president. Gary Lane, CBN News.
That ruling from the Supreme Court empowered the Trump campaign. We'll look at election 2024 next on Faith Nation.
Get the How to Believe for Healing collection, including a special exclusive teaching from Gordon Robertson.
For whatever reason, deep within my spirit, I prayed, Lord, how about now? Can I rely on you now?
Gordon's personal stories were honest, they were humble, they were incredibly dramatic.
I felt more hopeful about seeing healing within my own life.
When you read the names of God, you're literally talking about his very essence.
Take this opportunity that God is giving you through these teachings and learn about healing miracles.
The best part for me was when we realized that God chose us and he trusts us.
Receive your exclusive video, workbook, and special teaching when you become a CBN partner. Call or go online today.
Welcome back. After an historic election cycle, Americans went to the polls in November, and the outcome was decisive. Donald Trump flipped nearly all 7 swing states to become the 47th president of the United States, making him the second president in American history to win 2 non-consecutive terms. Despite facing a criminal conviction, an attempted assassin's bullet, and an unexpected opponent, Jennifer Wishon takes us back to the morning after Election Day with this report.
In a show of electoral might, Donald Trump has become the first president to win a non-consecutive race for the White House since Grover Cleveland did it more than 130 years ago. Trump's path to victory was blazoned by a trail that flipped nearly all of the coveted swing states. For MAGA faithful, it was a night of redemption. Joined by his wife Melania and his children, Trump stepped out to claim victory in the early hours of the morning.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country.
He renewed his promises on the economy, immigration, and what he calls common sense leadership.
This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have.
Now he'll get to work forming his cabinet, along with J.D. Vance, a man with his own inspiring personal comeback story.
I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
And he pulled off something that's eluded Republicans for 20 years. Along with the Electoral College, Donald Trump is poised to win the popular vote. Kamala Harris is expected to speak later today. Despite making abortion the cornerstone of her campaign, women voters didn't turn out for her in the droves some expected. Trump won white women by 52%. He also won Latino men and white men. Christian voters also made a difference. Trump won 62% of the Protestant vote and 56% of the Catholic vote. Now comes the hard part of governing. He'll inherit an economy a majority of Americans say isn't working for them, along with 2 wars and mounting tensions with America's foes.
He's going to have to worry about not upsetting the U.S.-China relationship so much that the economic costs spill over into the security realm.
And reuniting the bitterly divided country.
I think what we have tonight is a red, white, and blue wave in this country. Because what we need in the United States of America is leaders in Washington, D.C. that actually put the interests of American citizens above all else.
And with Republican Bernie Moreno's Senate win in Ohio and Jim Justice's win in West Virginia, Trump will enjoy a Republican majority in the U.S. Senate.
We need the Republican Party to start solving the problems of this country, and we have a significant number of problems.
Dozens of House races across the country have yet to be called, but Speaker Mike Johnson, who won his bid for re-election in Louisiana, says he's confident the GOP will retain its majority.
So look, it's too early to call everything, but we're very optimistic. I mean, it looks good. I've been in the war room. I'm calling the candidates as they're calling the races.
Republican control over the White House and Congress would give the GOP a big boost in passing its agenda.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness. And now we are going to fulfill that mission together.
Still, many Christian leaders say followers of Jesus have an important responsibility as the nation works to move forward.
And so we're trying to show people a way to say, hey, regardless if you're a Democrat or a Republican, especially as a Christian, you have to be civil, you have to be constructive, and you have to be looking to help your neighbor. And that should be the focus.
As Christians, let's try to reconcile and move people closer together and move them forward for the better of everyone in this country.
And some leaders say it's okay for Christians to see themselves as outsiders, as Jesus calls us to be.
And when we recognize that we don't have to fit into our current cultural system, we can then engage our community, our culture, not out of anger or by complying to it, but instead in love.
Trump says he believes success is what will bring the country back together. When he starts implementing his agenda and the country has some wins, he believes the nation will begin to heal. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
IVF in America, the issue was in the spotlight this year. We'll look when we come back. Meet a couple who adopted 2 frozen embryos, giving them a chance at life.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today. Download the CBN News app. 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
In 2024, the abortion debate sparked new arguments over in vitro fertilization. A majority of Americans support the practice that helps childless couples conceive. Others are divided on the morality of a procedure which involves the destruction of frozen embryos. Charlene Aaron reports on a possible solution where everyone wins.
Millions of couples deal with infertility, and more are turning to science in the hope of growing their families. The latest U.S. statistics show that in 2021, in vitro fertilization resulted in the births of more than 86,000, or 2% of babies nationwide. Amidst growing debate over IVF, a lesser-known option called embryo adoption is also gaining ground. For 10 years, Rodney and Mary Leah Miller struggled to have a family.
Attempt after attempt, negative pregnancy test after negative pregnancy test, you begin to wonder, will this ever happen for us?
That question led the Alabama couple to undergo several rounds of in vitro fertilization, which all failed. Then in May of 2020, friends told them about embryo adoption, a process which involves a woman receiving one or several donated frozen embryos.
We both just had a peace about us, and we're very confident that this is how the Lord was going to start our family.
The Millers connected with the Snowflake program, which helps people with embryos in frozen storage to offer them for adoption. While their first try resulted in miscarriage, the second proved doubly successful. 2 years ago, twins Dalton and Mary Elizabeth, who had been frozen for 10 years, were born via C-section.
To see that promise realized on December 23rd, 2022 was, it was truly a miracle, but also just, representative of God's faithfulness.
Concerns about this technology have moved to the forefront this year, especially over the large number of embryos which may never be implanted. In February, the Alabama Supreme Court ignited the debate by ruling frozen embryos created during IVF to be children. Then, during its annual meeting in June, the Southern Baptist Convention passed a resolution expressing compassion for couples faced with infertility, as well as moral caution for the procedure. Ethicist Jason Thacker advised the SBC on the matter.
We're not condemning the practice outright, but we're saying we must kind of think cautiously and cultivate wisdom for how we navigate these devastating realities.
Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency, home to the Snowflake program, estimates more than 1.5 million embryos remain in frozen storage nationwide. CBN News asked Beth Button, the program's executive director, about the possibility of finding adoptive families for all those embryos.
It really depends on how many of those embryos end up being donated for adoption. So many of the embryos that are in frozen storage, the family who created them could potentially be still planning to use them at a later point for reproduction.
Budden says many who support embryo adoption are unaware of what's involved in the practice.
And unfortunately, it's just part of the everyday practice of in vitro fertilization that embryos are discarded.
Ethical issues that can be difficult, especially for many Christians.
We faced them and made very difficult decisions with our very first specialist that we spoke with on the number of embryos that we were willing to fertilize and that we wouldn't be discarding.
Thacker sees the widespread acceptance of in vitro fertilization as the next stance in the fight for the unborn. A recent Gallup poll found that 82% believe IVF to be morally acceptable. 10% view the procedure as morally wrong, with the remainder expressing no opinion. And when it comes to destroying frozen embryos created by in vitro fertilization, 49% believe it is moral to do so, while 43% disagree.
What we're seeing not only in the state of Alabama, but other states rushing to kind of usher in protections for IVF, access to IVF. We see the push at the federal level to federalize access to IVF.
Meanwhile, the Millers are grateful for their growing family, as they're expecting a second set of twins later this year.
Look at these beautiful blessings the Lord has given us. We spend our time thanking Him for the science and everything that He has provided to make this possible.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Coming up, the other side of college protests. Jewish and Christian students boldly taking a stand for Israel, even in the face of harassment.
Discover CBN Family, your gateway to inspiration, faith, and encouragement you can count on. Tune in to your favorite CBN programs like the 700 Club and witness uplifting testimonies that will ignite your spirit. Experience the joy of each season with our fun and exciting seasonal content, perfect for the whole family. And don't forget Superbook. Let your kids embark on thrilling Bible adventures, sparking their faith with excitement. Stay informed and gain a Christian perspective on current events with CBN News. Join our live streaming events, connecting you to other believers, worship, and spiritual growth. Immerse yourself in captivating documentaries that will fuel your faith and deepen your understanding. Download the CBN Family app today and unlock a world of inspiration, faith-centered programs, and encouraging content. CBN Family, encouragement you can count on. Download the app or go to cbnfamily.com today.
Well, many young people and college students protested Israel's war in 2024. Some students are taking a different tack, opting to see firsthand the devastation of the October 7th attacks and the ongoing war. CBN's Julie Stahl spoke with a group of Jewish and Christian students about their visit to the Holy Land and how it inspired them to stand for Israel.
These students have felt the weight of facing pro-Palestinian protesters and anti-Semitism on their campuses while advocating for Israel.
I'm not going to pretend it's easy. It's a lot tougher than I would like it to be.
The students met with Knesset member Danny Danon, who pledged Israel's solidarity with them.
We are at war here in Israel fighting Hamas and Hezbollah, but also those brave students are at war on the campuses in North America.
Michael Eglash says these students needed to have a personal experience here to help in their work back home on campus.
Not too long after October 7th, we saw that there was a tremendous need to bring student leaders, pro-Israel student leaders, both Jewish and non-Jewish, to Israel to see firsthand the terrible atrocities and to bear witness to what happened.
Eglash says now they will be better prepared for their mission to take action for Israel.
We're giving the tools and the techniques and the content and the knowledge, but plus the strategies and the confidence and the resilience to go back and stand up for Israel on campus.
The students visited hard-hit sites from October 7th near Gaza, including Kibbutz Nir Oz, the Nova Music Festival site, and Sderot.
To actually be there, where these things were happening, where people were being killed, where people were being raped, to see the houses of little kids, toys spewed all about, half broken, is horrifying, because it makes you just realize that this isn't an obscure thing. Like it's in the process of the protests and everything that's going on and all the excitement, you can start to forget what this is actually about.
The rush of emotions I experienced
And the personal stories I've heard really humanized this whole situation. It gave me a lot of perspective, and that's hard to achieve when I'm in the United States and experiencing anti-Semitism on my campus.
Jack Landstein from the University of Michigan now feels more equipped to share the truth of what happened.
These stories have to be shared because people understand personal interactions.
I've watched, documentaries, I've watched, really graphic videos, but there's something different about being here in person. For me, the Nova Festival site was the most painful experience, I think, because it's the one with which I'm able to connect the most, because a lot of these people are, relatively near my age.
Natalie Manzo, a Christian from the University of Connecticut, is majoring in Judaic studies.
I obviously have a different experience as students who are Jewish. I have a major in Judaic studies, so I feel some of that anti-Semitism, of course being identified as a pro-Israel Zionist person.
Natalie felt most impressed by the unity she saw among Israelis and wants to use her experience here to encourage others to take action.
I feel like there's a lot of people out there who, like me, had no previous knowledge about Jewish history, and I want to be a vessel for information to these people.
Joshua Shane from Columbia University says Christian support for the Jewish people and Israel is vital.
I'm absolutely grateful for all the support that I have received from Jews and non-Jews alike, especially from Columbia's Christian community, by the way.
Danone advised the students.
I told them not to have any fear. I know it's intimidating that you go on campus and people are shouting and yelling, and sometimes we saw physical attacks. They should stand up and fight back. They should not hide the Jewishness. They should not hide the love to the state of Israel. That is my message to all the supporters of Israel.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And that's going to do it for Faith Nation. Have a great night and a very happy new year.